can see it from here. No, just the Tiare has got to come off. Scraping off the paint, and just on the top, underneath the top surface, there's a you can see all the sort of dents and wrinkles and unevenness underneath the top, sort of what looks to be a smooth coat but really isn't. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. That's just the old stuff there, and just underneath it, it's all this grooves and rivels and sort of canyons in there. All that sort of stuff is the build-up from years and years of just putting anti-foul on top of anti-foul, and it's certainly not what the anti-foul companies or the paint companies recommend. They do recommend that you take back to the base and apply another coat of anti-foul on there, and what that does is it creates a constantly smooth surface. This is actually fairly rough. And anti-foul, other than making it release organisms that stick to there, is it's supposed to give a very smooth surface for the boat's hull to slip through. And when it ends up like this, that's certainly not smooth, and then actually increases a fair amount of friction to the surface. And it's probably not so noticeable on a small boat, but tanker size, it's quite a noticeable fuel saving when it's smooth. And for Tiare here as well, it's the reason I'm taking all this back to the initial paint system, and then repainting that as well and smoothing it off, so I start applying a nice good quality anti-foul that will leave me with a very smooth coat, and then I'll do that once a year, or into 4 or 5 years, whenever they recommend to replace it, and whenever it starts getting fouled up. Yay! So now I'm going to look for all the little nicks and grooves I've put in, taking the paint off. Is all nicks I've made, and it's just the entire inner starboard hull is like this. Just take a bit of an act, a bit of time to learn how to do it. So that's what my first hull looks like, well, first side, and this is the last side. As you can see, there's a vast improvement. Not so much that side. Here we go. So all this has been de-waxed with hot soapy water and then rinsed down. The top side, or the top coat, yesterday I spent degreasing it all. Got a good degreaser, and the whole lot has been degreased, ready for sanding. Right, so there's all my, again on this side, there all the All these little bits in here have all been done. This is all from the scratching, and everything else is from the dinghy or the tender. I'm just so against hard tenders on my boat. We paint. So this is the part I'm painting here, from there down to there. I'm not going to bother painting up there. What I'll do there is just give that a cut and polish. I think it hasn't had as much, well, it has had no knocks or anything up there because it's well protected. All the green stuff here is just surface stuff on here. I'm actually going to go around and I might get one of my sons to paint the whole lot in anti-freeze ethyl glycol. Good morning. This is the last day I'm going to be sanding, I hope, before I just start putting some undercoat on. I think I've got another day of just prepping up, fairing, and just sort of sanding back areas that I faired up yesterday. You can still see that, but I got up to yesterday. Sanded, not sanded, no, sanded, not sanded. I've got this logo that actually says Tiare in Thai. And this is a stylized flower from Polynesia, which is what Tiare means, flower in Polynesian. And yeah, so I'll sand this off as well. This comes off with about 80 grit, I think. It was alright. Okay, one side sanded. That's where the logo and the name used to be. And then, yep, it's all been sanded initially with 80 grit, and then just quick 100 grit over it just to knock any stuff sticking up just up into here. So I'm going to tape up in between these spots here. You see it there? Yeah, so I'll tape up in there. But yeah, pretty happy with that. 3 more to go. It takes about half an hour to do the sides. Okay. Just here are the fixing points, I think, for the when they're doing the double diagonal. I don't know what the story is there, but anyway, I've dug a couple of out and they're absolutely fine underneath. So it's just the way they the paint raised up over them, or they're wiggled, or the epoxy, or who knows. But anyway, all looking good. Yeah, that's looking good too there. Right, port side. Good morning. It's the morning again. Last night and yesterday I just managed to put the second coat on the bottom. You can see the difference in colour there. So the second coat of the epoxy primer has gone on the bottom this morning, and the rest of the day I'm going to put a coat of a different type of primer on the top here, on above the waterline. This is a tie coat between the Bano 1500 and the finish coat, the Flurex resin, or Flurex finish. So what I'm putting on now is a tie coat between the Bano and the final coat. The Bano itself is a tie coat between the Hempel urethane I've got and the Flurex finish. They don't have the Flurex finish in their, they have the Flurex finish in the database, but they don't have it on top of the Hempel urethane that I've got on my boat. So what they've done is they've put the Bano 1500 as a tie coat between that and the tie coat for the fluoro finish. So what I'll end up with is basically 2 lots of tie coats. This one here will bond to the Hempel, and the coat I'm putting on this morning will bond to this. So it's what they're happy with. So I'm going to go with what the chemists are happy with, because that sounds like the sensible thing to do. It does mean I have an extra coat on there, or 2 coats, but that doesn't worry me really. It just means there's extra thickness of epoxy, which is a very tough sort of coating. Getting pretty happy with the results. I've certainly learnt a lot. The first boat I've ever done like this. It's my boat, which is a good thing, but there's a lot of there's a lot of lessons to be learned. There's everything from sanding, from scraping, how to scrape, how to do a decent amount of sanding, filling up all the scours and notches that I've done, and then even just applying epoxy with a roller. There's techniques to that as well, to sort of extend the life of your roller and make sure everything goes on at the right thickness. So it's been a learning curve, and it's certainly by the time I did the last hole, it was really good. Like my first hole, which is over here, that's the first hole I did, just had so many grooves and gouges from my scraper. The whole thing was just covered in epoxy filler, whereas my the last hole I did here, which is the bottom part, that was just there's only a few little gouges I had to do. It made a big difference. This here, the top there's all that patchy stuff. That was my first time I'd ever used a roller with the epoxy. As you can see, it was terrible, and by the time I did the last coat, or the last side, it was just it was uniform and looking really nice. However, live and learn, eh? It's all good fun. Righto, end of the day, I've put 1 coat of that Fluorix Finish epoxy primer on the top there. It has a slightly different colour, I guess, or a sheen to what's below, so I can kind of see what's finish primer, base primer, so I can sort of see where the line is. I've ordered a laser level that should be arriving tomorrow, so on Wednesday I can set it up over here and strike the correct level across there. I took the measurements before I painted everything, so I'll get the exact same line as before, and it'll be straight this time. And then I can paint to that, paint the another couple of layers of undercoat at the top and another one down below, so I can get a decent straight line through it all, which I'm looking forward to. Getting there slowly, eh? It certainly takes time. Good morning. It's a bit of a coming to the end of all this prep work for the boat. I've got 1 more coat to put on here. I've blocked this off. Well, not really blocked. I've just sanded it lightly off, get rid of any bits and pieces that are sort of sticking up. This afternoon I'm going to give it a thorough, a good last coat of this Fluorix epoxy undercoat primer. And what I did yesterday was I ground all this back off, all the paint off to the aluminium. A lot of it was sticking, but there's a lot of bubbling just coming up underneath. And I'll show you here, you can sort of see it here. I'm just going to leave this, I'm just going to grind this off later and leave this part bare. For the reason is it gets all the salt water, it sits there, it drops and things, and it does seem to sort of work its way into any bubbles of paint or little microscopic holes in the paint and start peeling off. So I'm just going to leave this bare. It's marine aluminium, so it shouldn't make any, it should be fine. But this stuff here I'm going to paint blue, same colour as the hull, so it sort of blends in a bit. Right, I've just put the last of the Fluorix Finish epoxy primer on the engine bays, the drop downs there. So these are what I'm going to be practicing my roll and tip, I guess it is, or whatever I'm going to be doing. Right, well, I've as you can see, I've finished the whole paintings. I've had 3 to 4 coats. Well, I've had 3 coats on the inside, good thick coats of Fluorix Finish, and the outsides have had 4. The engine bays have had pretty much the same, and I'm just about to do the other side on the rudders. So yeah, so I'm just about. This is the side that was damaged. I had all the holes in it. I had to dry it out. That's all done. It's all been glass and faired, and if you can sort of look down here, it's a lot less airplane wing shaped and more straight. Sort of matches the other one. I've also put an extra thick layer of glass. It won't go back in until sort of early next year, I think. One of the reasons for that is I do want to look at my mast. As you can see at the top there, it's got a band-aid on it, and so I actually want to pull them out. There's got a crane around here which floats around over there somewhere, so I'll see if it can come in and pull them out. If it's beyond my budget, then I'll end up
lowering them down manually, which I can do. I've never done it before, and they're fairly heavy. They're 230 kg each. Hopefully, and I want to redo the wood up here. There's nothing, I actually like silver wood. It just means the teak's gone grey in the weather, and you can just leave it alone, just wash it down with fresh water, salt water occasionally. But I do, because we've been blasted by typhoons. A few years ago we had 8 typhoons come through, and as you can sort of see, it's just created this sort of look up close there, there's big grooves everywhere in the teak. All the soft and hard wood's just been blasted away, and what I like to do is actually well, I'll show you what I'm going to do. I think I've already done a little bit here just to make sure that it does work. Of course it's going to work, but it's practical. Is just sand it back to the wood, and start the whole greying process all over again. Although I might put a bit of oil in it, possibly. We'll see what it's. I shouldn't need to, but yeah, just to get rid of all this sort of, just get it a bit nice and flat again. So I'm looking forward to that, and that will really give the boat a lift along with its waterline. Pretty happy about that. It's yeah, wasn't a roll on tip, it was more of a carriage style painting. There's a link below, I guess, and it's worked out really well. This is the best side I've got, and it's, yeah, pretty happy with it. 4 coats on this side of a non-thin fluorix finish, which is a urethane fluorine, I guess it is. It's a Teflon basically finish. So we'll see how that adds up over the years. It's supposed to stay the same gloss, very minimal gloss, no chalking, etc. over many years. It's very, very tough. Anyway, so this here is the, it's not actually the waterline. The waterline's about here to here. I've just brought it down slightly because I'm not sure where I want to put the waterline exactly. So it might end up there, or it might end up slightly higher up. I'm not too sure where it's going to go. I'll show you anyway. I'll show you what it looks like close up. I don't know if you can see in here. Yeah, maybe. It's got a little bit of what they call orange peel, which is what left behind from the roller, from the epoxy. I really didn't want to have to make it mirror smooth. That's a lot of work. You've got to sand back all the epoxy till it's dead flat, and then fill up any areas that don't quite get sanded flat, and then sort of longboard it to smooth it all out, and that's just an awful lot of work. At the end of the day, this is not a super yacht, it is a working boat. And I think this sort of quality finish is more than enough for what I need. It's less to do with the quality of the finish and more the type of paint that I'm using. Well, I'm just putting another coat of epoxy primer on the rudders on the other side. I've got another one left, one more coat of epoxy primer, and then I'll sand them flat, and then I'll put the fluorix finish on them. This is kind of the last. Let's just drop the camera, shall we? Let's not drop the camera. This is kind of the last warm day, I guess, of this winter, maybe. See how things go, but the next few days it's just going to 10 degrees plummet overnight, so it's going to be, instead of 10 or whatever, it's going to be down to 2 or so. So that's really going to make a bit of a difference. As you can see, it is absolutely a beautiful afternoon. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon at the moment, and it's just got this lovely mist coming off the water. It's just really, really pretty and very, very relaxing and peaceful. Anyway, back to painting.